be unto you. My name is Tamar Yisrael, and you're watching Beyond the Surface. Have you ever wondered why war and violence ravage the earth? Why mankind just don't seem to get along and love one another? Why are there floods, famine, earthquakes, homelessness, death, and disease amidst a society of opulence, wealth, and great resources? Why do floods, wildfires, hurricanes, and drought plague the globe, claiming the lives of thousands each year? Why, after almost 400 years in this country, is the American Negro still treated as unwanted, second-class citizens, as evidenced by the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina? To obtain the answers to all these questions, you must begin to look beyond the surface. You see, we live in a world of great illusion, crafted by the master deceiver, Lucifer, the devil, the prince of darkness. In order to uncover these hidden mysteries, you must begin to open your eyes to divine consciousness. And only Yahweh, our Heavenly Father, can part back the curtains of your darkened mind so that you may see into His glorious light. Beyond the Surface is a documentary formatted program designed to reveal the unknown hidden mysteries of the earth to you. Only then will you truly begin to understand why there is so much trouble in the world. On Beyond the Surface, we'll explore topics regarding current world news events, history, technology, religion, and science through graphics, narration, and music. We'll end with a segment called The Watchman, designed to warn you of evil and provide an understanding of righteousness and truth. We hope you'll enjoy Beyond the Surface, so sit back and stay tuned for the program. Beyond the Surface presents The Treaty of Rome, narrated by Tamar Yisrael. It's been 50 years since the original signing of the Treaty of Rome, and the unification of Europe grows ever closer. Why is it happening, and where will it lead? In March 1957, delegates from 6 Western European countries signed the Treaty of Rome, which brought the European Economic Community into existence, laying the foundation for the powerful European Union we see today. It is truly remarkable how far things have progressed. In 1981, Greece became the 10th member of the European Union, and since that time, 15 more European nations have joined in. Now, incredible events are occurring in Europe. The geopolitical changes that have rearranged the map of the continent in recent years continue. It has quickly become the largest trading bloc in the world and currently boasts the all-powerful euro, the most prized currency of all times. Forces are building in Europe that is destined to shake human civilization to its foundation. Many nations, especially the United States, are going to experience the shocking impact of the thunderclouds gathering over Europe. We will all be affected, so we can't afford to be ignorant of what is happening. We need to watch. We need to understand where these crucial events in Europe are leading, and we must understand them from a biblical and prophetic perspective. In the book of Revelation, John provides us a glimpse of a terrifying beast, which symbolizes an amalgamation of the past 4 world kingdoms into one final empire, coming up out of the sea of men that had received a deadly wound that would be healed. And this revived empire would receive its power directly from Lucifer, the devil himself.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Revelations chapter 13, verses 1 through 2.
In order to understand the revived beast of Revelation that John saw, you must first understand the prophecy of the book of Daniel, chapter 7, as these 4 empires were also described as great beasts that would bear rule over the entire earth.
And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Daniel chapter 7, verses 3 through 7.
In Daniel chapter 2, these same 4 world empires were described in the form of a great statue that the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar had dreamed about. Then Yahweh showed Daniel what the dream meant.
You, O king, saw, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before you, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Daniel chapter 2, verses 31 through 33.
Since Nebuchadnezzar was the head of the Babylonian Empire, which virtually ruled the then known world, he was the head of gold, and was also the lion beast with wings of Daniel chapter 7. But the prophecy meant that another empire would arise and overtake it. Every ruler would like to think that he will never be defeated, but that doesn't happen. Someone should remind George W. Bush, the president of the United Snakes of America, of this well-known historical fact. The second empire was silver, meaning that it was inferior to the first in many ways. It was represented by the 2 arms and breasts of the great image of Daniel chapter 2, and by the bear in Daniel chapter 7. Any student of world history knows that this second empire was that of the Medes and the Persians. The Medo-Persian Empire gave way to the Greeks in 331 BC. The empire represented by the belly and thighs of brass of the great statue, and by the leopard with 4 heads and wings in Daniel chapter 7. The Greeks gave way to the Romans, the 4th world empire, represented by the iron legs of Nebuchadnezzar's image of Daniel chapter 2, and by the dreadful and terrible beast that had great iron teeth in Daniel chapter 7. The feet and toes of the great statue in Daniel chapter 2 was made of iron and clay, and the 10 horns of the dreadful beast of Daniel chapter 7 was even more deteriorated, yet strong as iron, and they both represented the future revived Roman Empire that is forming today. But listen to what the scriptures say will happen to this revived Roman Empire.
You saw till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and broke them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them, and the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Daniel chapter 2, verses 34 through 35.
When the stone comes out of heaven and lands on these feet of iron and clay, they will break. The stone from heaven represents the second coming of the King of Kings, Yahshua the Christ, a black Hebrew Israelite and Jewish Messiah. He will destroy this revived Roman Empire and will set up an earthly kingdom where his people, the so-called Negro, shall be the rulers, and this kingdom shall never be destroyed.
I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 through 14.
These last four world empires, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, have all come and gone. Rome was in the height of its power during the time of Christ. It fell in 476 AD, and there have been attempts to revive the Roman Empire ever since. This prophecy is literally coming to pass in our lifetime. While many in our modern secular society view the Bible as a source of solace and comfort, they fail to see its relevance to history and current world affairs, especially the so-called Negro. Yet prophecy is the record of selected world events written in advance, and all prophecy pertains to what will happen to the so-called Negro, Yahweh's holy people. So how did the coming together of the Treaty of Rome all begin? Well, the 50s ended and the 90s began with a series of sudden, jolting, totally unexpected events. In November 1989, the infamous Berlin Wall crumbled. The line that divided Germany for more than 50 years had disappeared almost overnight. By August 1990, East and West Germany had been reunited. In a matter of weeks, the once powerful Soviet Union had begun to be dismantled. Suddenly, a dozen satellite nations in Eastern Europe were free: Poland, Lithuania, Czechoslovakia, and the walls of communism came tumbling down. All told, in less than 24 months, the map of Europe, unchanged for more than 50 years, had been radically redrawn. For the last 50 years, Europe has lived in the shadow of two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. Europeans have, to some extent, watched from the sidelines while others shaped the modern world. However, the memory of when Europe dominated the world through the mighty Roman Empire has never been forgotten. The ancient desire to see Europe pacified and merged into a political unit is a dream that still lives on in the heads of the people and its rulers. In fact, it has been the ultimate aim of generations of men with money and power who have been inducted into demon-controlled secret societies, including many right here in the United States of America, to bring this final revival of the old Roman Empire about. George W. Bush Sr. said,
"If we do not follow the dictates of our inner moral compass and stand up for human life, then lawlessness will threaten the peace and democracy of the emerging new world order we now see. This long dreamed of vision we've all worked toward for so long."
Pope John Paul II said,
"To bring about peace, there needs to be a new respect for international law and the creation of a new international order."
These demon-controlled leaders are making this out to be a good thing, but make no mistake, it will be the worst governmental structure that has ever been set up upon the face of the earth. All praises be to the Most High that this dreadful empire will only last for 3½ years. Then it will be destroyed before it destroys all mankind and the earth.
And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Revelation chapter 13, verses 3 through 5.
Ever since the original Roman Empire broke up into pieces around 476 AD, there have been many men who have tried to unite Europe again and regain its former power. Charlemagne tried it around 800 AD. He became the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, but he never got it all together. The Germans took over Italy around AD 960. They installed a king and called him Kaiser, which means Caesar in German. Russia got into the act and took over parts of the northeastern section. Their king was called Tsar, which is Russian for Caesar. Napoleon Bonaparte made a great try at it, but was defeated at Waterloo. The Germans tried it again in World War I under the Kaiser and in World War II under Hitler. In all these wars for the last 1,500 years to unite Europe into one empire, countless millions of soldiers and civilians have died. No one man or army could join all the iron and clay toes and the 10 horns together again. But Bible prophecy indicates that a European leader will do this in the coming near future. And it looks like this future might be arriving as the European countries are forming an alliance with a common market and with a common currency. And they are doing it without firing a shot. It is to these deeply ingrained goals and traditions that French statesman Jean Monnet and other visionaries have looked to their quest to unite Europe and restore its lost grandeur. In fact, referring to the 1957 Treaty of Rome, Henry Spack, the former Secretary General of NATO, admitted in a BBC documentary on the European Union that
We felt like Romans on that day. We were consciously recreating the Roman Empire once more.
the European Union is the revived Roman Empire that is set and destined to eclipse the United States economically and politically on the world stage. Bible prophecy forewarns that all of the nations will be brought to their knees before the EU's future economic policies. And the euro is destined to overtake and replace the US dollar as the world's strongest currency. The euro dollar will then become a global monetary system that, according to prophecy in the book of Revelation, will soon become an electronic, cashless system where no one will be able to buy or sell without the future mark of this EU beast. So how will this revived Roman Empire impact the so-called Negro, the true Jews? The Bible warns us that the purpose of these four world empires, and especially this last one, was to try and destroy the mighty and the holy people, and that no man shall save us, although numerous strong black men have tried. These empires were Yahweh's whipping stick to punish the true Israelites by taking them captive and ultimately trying to destroy them as a nation of people. Why? Because Satan does not want the so-called Negro to fulfill their biblical destiny as rulers of the earth at the return of Christ.
Thus saith Yahweh, Behold, I will lift up mine hand to the Gentiles, meaning the European nations. See Genesis chapter 10, verses 1 through 5. and set up my standard to the people, and they shall bring your sons in their arms, and your daughters shall be carried upon their shoulders, and kings shall be your nursing fathers, and their queens your nursing mothers. They shall bow down to you with their face toward the earth, and lick up the dust of your feet. And you shall know that I am Yahweh, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. Shall the prey be taken from the mighty, or the lawful captive delivered? But thus saith Yahweh, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered. For I will contend with him that contend with you, and I will save your children, and I will feed them that oppress you with their own flesh, and they shall be drunk with their own blood, as with sweet wine. And all flesh shall know that I, Yahweh, am your Savior and your Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. Isaiah chapter 49, verses 22 through 26.
So how will the EU, the revived Roman Empire, impact those of us living in the age of its final restoration today? First, let's examine the exploits of the Caesars of the Roman Empire of the past, the legs of iron and the ferocious beasts with great iron teeth, regarding their intolerance of Yahweh's holy laws and their ill treatment of his holy people. Then we can clearly see how we will be impacted today as they go about to try and destroy us once and for all. Julius Caesar. The first Roman emperor, Julius Caesar, declared himself a living God and changed Yahweh's established calendar times and laws. Julius changed the beginning of the year from the biblical month of April, Abib in Hebrew, to January in honor of Janus, the two-faced Roman god who looked back into your past and forward into your future. Hence, the making of New Year's resolutions. It is this pagan god whom you worship at midnight on December 31st. Julius Caesar was also responsible for changing the beginning of a new day from the going down of the sun at evening time to 12 o'clock midnight. The 7th month of the year, July, is named in honor of this Roman Caesar. The prophecy regarding this Roman beast were phenomenally accurate.
Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. Daniel chapter 7, verses 23 through 25.
The so-called Negro, the most hated and despised nation upon the face of the earth, are the saints of the Most High. And history is proof that Europeans of the Roman Empire have truly worn us out and changed Yahweh's times and laws throughout the past 2,000 years. Augustus Caesar. Augustus was the nephew of Julius, and he was also considered to be a living god. The 8th month of the calendar, August, is named in this Caesar's honor. Augustus is responsible for setting up an Edomite named Herod to be king over the Jews in Jerusalem. It was during an era of peace in his reign that Yeshua the Christ was born in Bethlehem. Herod, fearful of the birth of the true heir to the throne of Israel, Yeshua, the Anointed One, ordered the murder of all Hebrew babies in Bethlehem ages 2 years old and under. Tiberius Caesar. Tiberius was the adopted son of Augustus, and he served as Roman emperor during the time of the death and resurrection of the Messiah. Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of the land of Judea, had him nailed to a tree only after his efforts to release him proved to no avail. Crucifixion was a horrendous method of Roman punishment and death. The worst part about it was that our own nation, the Jews, today known as Negroes or African Americans, gave the Messiah up to be killed and desired that Barabbas, a murderer and a thief, be set free in his place. This is the real reason why our nation was sold as slaves into Africa and subsequently brought to the Americas as slaves and now captives. So the next time you're looking in the mirror, wondering why we're treated so inhumanely, remember that the Messiah's blood is on our hands. But the Romans executed him. We've paid a dear price, and so will they.
And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem, and I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. Zechariah chapter 12, verses 9 and 10.
Caligula. Caesar Caligula was a Roman madman of the worst kind, and he despised the Jews. He proceeded to order a statue of himself as a young Jupiter to be placed in the temple at Jerusalem. Here is an historical account of what happened.
Caligula believed the Jews disrespected the office of emperor. He ordered the new governor of Syria and Palestine, Publius Petronius, to put in Jerusalem's temple statues of himself as God incarnate, and he sent 2 legions with Petronius into Judea to meet Jewish resistance. According to the Jewish historian Josephus, many tens of thousands of Jews, including women and children, went to Petronius and told him they were ready to die rather than submit to Caligula's statues profaning Jerusalem's temple. They were unarmed and announced that they would not fight, and they laid on the ground, baring their throats for cutting.
Claudius Caesar. This Roman emperor hated the Jews as well, so much so that he tried to expel them from the Roman Empire altogether.
Roman authorities viewed the spread of Judaism as a threat to Rome. Jews were scorned for refusing to burn incense before the emperor's statue. Jews, including those who followed Christ, aroused suspicion by their inclination to keep to themselves. They were disliked for their quarrelsome denunciation of gods other than Yahweh, and they were often the targets of mockery and violence. He denied Jews their right to meet in their synagogues, and in 49 AD, following a disturbance involving Jews, Claudius, as described in Acts chapter 18, expelled the Jews from the city.
Nero. Yet another sadistically insane Roman Caesar proceeded to murder all of the apostles of Yahshua the Anointed One. Nero is said to have ordered the martyrdom of the apostle Peter through crucifixion, and the apostle Paul was beheaded. He also had numerous Jews who were followers of Christ executed, blaming them for the burning of Rome, for which he himself was responsible.
Countering the rumor that blamed Nero for the fire, an official investigation concluded that the fire had been started by Jewish fanatics. Nero now learned of the difference between Jews who followed Christ, known as Christians, and other Jews, and he put blame for the fire on the Christians. As punishment, Nero sent some to their death in the arena. He ordered them to be covered with wild animal skins, and they were torn to pieces by wild animals.
Vespasian and Titus. Nearing the end of Nero's reign in 66 AD, the Jews revolted, killing Romans throughout Judea. Nero sent Vespasian, the then Roman general, to put down the Jewish revolt. After the death of Nero, Vespasian became emperor, and his son Titus finished the job of devastating the Jewish nation and their homeland. Titus crushed the rebellion with his Roman legions that were allowed to plunder, massacre, and burn. Unable to breach the city's defenses, the Roman armies established a permanent camp outside the city, digging a trench around the circumference of its walls and building a wall as high as the city walls themselves around Jerusalem. Anyone caught in the trench attempting to flee the city would be captured and crucified on top of the wall facing into Jerusalem. Tens of thousands of crucified bodies encircled Jerusalem by the end of the siege. Calls for help from Yahweh went unanswered. Roman soldiers poured into the city and, according to Josephus, they raped and massacred thousands. The blood of the Hebrews ran like a river throughout the city.
Yet had the soldiers not the same for those that were still alive, but they ran everyone through whom they met with, and obstructed the very lanes with their dead bodies, and made the whole city run down with blood, to such a degree indeed that the fire of many of the houses was quenched with these men's blood.
12,000 Jews, master craftsmen, were put to work building the magnificent Roman Colosseum. Built out of the booty from the Jewish war, the Colosseum was capable of holding some 50,000 spectators. Over 1 million Jews were killed by the Romans, and according to Josephus, the rest were sold as slaves into Africa.
As for the rest of the multitude that were above 17 years old, he put them into bonds and sent them to the Egyptian mines. Titus also sent a great number into the provinces as a present to them, that they might be destroyed upon their theaters by the sword and by the wild beasts. But those that were under 17 years of age were sold for slaves.
This is how the Hebrews became slaves in Africa. Hundreds of years later, the Africans turned around and sold their Jewish slaves right back to the Europeans during the transatlantic slave trade. The famous Ark of Titus still stands in Rome as a stark reminder of the destruction of the Jews and their holy city, Jerusalem. It depicts Roman legionnaires carrying off the temple of Jerusalem's treasuries, including the menorah. Yahweh's judgment upon his people, the true Jews, had finally come to pass with precise accuracy. Even the Messiah foretold of the Roman invasion and subsequent captivity of his people in Luke 21 and Matthew chapter 24.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is near. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Historian C.H. Spurgeon had this to say:
The destruction of Jerusalem was more terrible than anything that the world has ever witnessed, either before or since. Even Titus seemed to see in his cruel work the hand of an avenging God.
Vespasian issued an ancient Roman coin commemorating this event. The inscription reads, Evdea Capta, meaning Judah captured. The coins were issued throughout the Roman Empire, and Judah was represented by a crying woman. This represented the end of the Hebrew Israelites as a nation of people. Scattered throughout the world as captives and slaves, we continue to sing of our homeland, Jerusalem, Israel, and pray to our God for deliverance once and for all. Centuries after the destruction of Jerusalem and the enslavement of the true Jews, the scriptures tell us that Rome gobbled up the 7 churches that the Apostle Paul set up in Asia Minor. In 321 AD, Emperor Constantine, an ardent sun worshiper, made Christianity the legal religion of the Roman Empire. But it had everything to do with pagan sun worship and nothing to do with the Jewish culture of Christ, the apostles, and the early Jewish disciples called followers of Christ, or Christians. First, they changed the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first day, Sunday, in honor of the sun god Sol Invicti. Sol Invicti was kept on the emperor's coins even after his conversion to Christianity. So what we have here is evidence that although Constantine professed Christianity, he maintained his pagan religious beliefs in the sun god as well. Next, they refused to keep the Jewish holy days, including Passover, and instituted the keeping of Easter and all other paganistic holidays at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Then they changed the name of Yeshua to Jesus, or Jesus, a Greek Latinized version in honor of their pagan gods Jupiter and Zeus. Next, they established a formidable priesthood of bishops and cardinals after the old pagan order refused to allow people to read the scriptures for themselves, and pagan priests began interpreting the Bible to the ignorant masses, as it is to this very day. This Roman Catholic, meaning universal religious head, was described as a beast with two horns like a lamb, but he spake as a dragon, and was in control of the first beast, the king of the EU, or revived Rome, in the book of Revelation, chapter 13.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Revelations chapter 13, verses 11 through 18.
This beast refers to none other than the Pope of Rome. The official title of the Pope is Vicarius Filii Dei, which translated is Vicar of the Son of God. To confirm this fact, the Catholic newspaper Our Sunday Visitor of April 18, 1915 wrote,
"The engraved letter on the Pope's mitra is as follows: Vicarius Filii Dei."
Since in Latin certain letters have numerical values, we only need to add them up to come to 666. It is the mark of the beast.
And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Revelations chapter 13, verses 16 through 18.
Mankind will be forced to take his name, number, and mark, which will be nothing more than a microchip placed in their forehead or in their right hand. And we all know that the technology for this type of cashless society is already in place. They're just waiting for the right time to enforce it upon us. Please know and understand that there is a huge price that one will pay if you accept the name, number, and mark of the beast. Believe me when I say that according to Scripture, death will be more preferable than this.
And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the seven angels, Go your ways, and pour out the veils of the wrath of God upon the earth. And the first went, and poured out his veil upon the earth. And there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worship his image. Revelations chapter 16, verses 1 and 2.
The Roman Catholic Pope had habitually blasphemed Yahweh by claiming to be God himself. They call him the Holy Father, don't they? But Christ said, Call no man reverend, let alone the Father. Yahweh only is the Holy Father. Here are other excerpts from church leaders regarding their belief on the Pope's divinity.
We hold upon this earth the place of God Almighty. Pope Leo XIII, in an encyclical letter dated June 20th, 1894. The Pope is not only the representative of Jesus Christ, but he is Jesus Christ, hidden under a veil of flesh. The Catholic National, July 1895. But the supreme teacher in the church is the Roman pontiff, who requires complete submission and obedience of will as to God himself. Pope Leo XIII, the Great Encyclical Letters, page 193.
This powerful office, along with the Caesar of the Roman Empire, has implemented a false Christ-like religious system that includes the following: granted the forgiveness of sins that only Yahweh can do, allowed the worship of Mary, the mother of Christ, placed images and statues in their churches which are against Yahweh's commandments, and last but not least, commissioned Renaissance painters to change the color and nationality of Christ and his people from dark-skinned to white-skinned. Truly, the Pope and rulers of Europe have done their damage over the centuries in trying to regain control over the entire world. But the worst is yet to come. I hereby invite you to take an unprecedented look at the world in which you live. Take a look at the hidden master plan that warps the courses and destinies of the world's wealthiest men, countries, and religions. Look beyond the headlines, beyond the cable news, and beyond the fear and suspicions that these sources nurture. Examine the world's greatest acts of terrorism under a brand new light. I invite you to see with new eyes the revival of the fourth world power, the EU, the Holy Roman Empire, and resist it with all of your might. Yahweh be thanked that this empire, their leaders, and their armies will be destroyed at the coming battle of Armageddon. Yahshua, the Messiah himself, will lead the battle. According to Revelation 19, he will cast the king of EU and the Pope into the lake of fire. And a mighty angel will bound Satan, that old serpent, the devil, and cast him into a pit for 1,000 years. Then Christ and his people will rule the earth in complete peace and righteousness forever, even forever and ever.
Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spoke very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows, I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it until the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Daniel chapter 7, verses 17 through 27.
Hello, and welcome to the Watchman segment of our program. You know, since 312 ACE, when Emperor Constantine decreed Christianity to be the legal religion of the Holy Roman Empire, the Europeans have fought many crusades to spread their religion worldwide. The most notable crusade of the last millennium was the taking of the New World from the Russians, that nut Christopher Columbus called Indians. Since then, these Protestants have bought Hebrew slaves, fought against Europe for independence, and they fought a civil war among its own people. And since 1914, the Christians have united to fight World War I, World War II, and recently, the Christians of the USA and her mother Europe have united to set democracy in the Middle East. However, Christian democracy is designed to change the cultures of the world to Christian values of a Gentile-type paganism. But let me read a piece of scripture in the book of Daniel and see what Daniel had to say about this fourth empire here. This is Daniel 7, and I'm going to read verse 7. It says, "After this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth empire, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was different from all the beasts that was before it, and it had 10 kings that would come up among them." Now, this fourth empire is different in that it would use religion as a catalyst to conquer the whole earth. Now, I'd like to read something else to you that was said by John the Revelator pertaining to this same empire that fell in 476 ACE. A lot of people don't study history, so we don't get back and find out about these different empires, so that when you read the symbolism in the Holy Bible, you know what's being said. I'm going to read something to you about this fourth beast in Revelation chapter 13, and I'm going to pick this up at verse 1. It says, "And I stood upon the sands of the sea, and I saw an empire rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." Well, the 7 heads are the 7 rulers that ruled the 4 empires that came up on the earth from 606 BC, with the Caesars being the 7th heads, and the 10 horns are 10 kings that came up to try to revive the Holy Roman Empire that fell in 476 AD. And incidentally, when the Roman Empire fell, they divided among everyone but our people. Why? Because the nation, because of who we are, and because the nations are set on destroying our seed. Verse 2, "And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet was the feet of a bear, and his mouth the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." Well, the leopard was Alexander the Great, which refers to the swiftness that he conquered the earth. And the bear, we know that Russia is still called the bear. They came up in 539 with the Medo-Persian Empire. And then the mouth of the lion was Nebuchadnezzar. "And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if was wounded to death, and the deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." Now, Rome fell, like I said before, Rome fell in 476 AD, and here we see that the Europeans are putting the EU together, which is the revived Holy Roman Empire that fell in 476 AD. Verse 4, "And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the empire, and they worshipped the king, saying, Who is like unto this beast, and who is able to make war with him? And there was given him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 3.5 years," which incidentally is the great tribulation period that's going to come upon our people once Lucifer is thrown out of heaven. Verse 6, "And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against Elohim, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell on the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life, slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that kills with the sword must be killed with the sword." Now, what that was referring to is the political empire that they're putting together. Everybody's talking about the New World Order. Well, this is the New World Order that's coming up on the earth. The problem is America can't be a part of it. Now, that was political Babylon. Now, let me read something to you about ecclesiastical Babylon, or the Christian church. This is Revelation 17, and I'm going to read verse 8 through verse 14. "The beast that thou sawest was and is not shall ascend out of the bottom of this pit and go in perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life, slain from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And here's the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the whore sits. And we know that Rome sits upon 7 hills. Now I'm going to go back over to verse 1, chapter 17 and verse 1. It says, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit in the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. In other words, she was in control of political Babylon. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of the filthiness of her abomination. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Yeshua. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Now I'm going back over and pick this up at verse 11. It says, And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power 1 hour as kings with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the empire. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. So as we see, this empire is gearing up to fight the Messiah when he returned. Now understand now, this is the power of the Christian church that the Europeans set up. We just follow stuff because it's convenient. Now I'm going to go into chapter 19 and read what's going to happen to this beast once the Messiah, this empire, once the Messiah returns back to the earth. I'm going to pick this up in Revelations 19 and verse 19. And I saw the empire and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war with him that sat upon the horse and against his army. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that walked miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worship his image. These both, 2 people, were cast alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. And the remnant was slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which the sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. Now, when we consider the rise of the EU, the Europeans are reviving the so-called Holy Roman Empire, which fell in 476 AD. The goal of Lucifer's last empire is not only to destroy the Hebrews, our people, our chosen people that was chosen by Yahweh our Elohim, but the empire is gearing up to fight Yeshua at his return. Although we fill their churches every first day of the week, although we've tried to integrate and live as these heathen Gentiles live and worship their Jesus, today our males are being destroyed and incarcerated in alarming numbers. Our families are being destroyed. 68% of our families have one-parent families, one parent in the household, mainly women, and our males are being ostracized and forced to leave families by their women who corporate America has systematically made the breadwinners, and lifestyles and legislative liberties have our women dressing to show that they have no shame or no respect. That's because the chosen people of the Almighty have learned the ways of these heathens. Lucifer is using these heathens to destroy our people. But let me go and read some things to you that Yahweh warned us of pertaining to this last empire and all the other empires that were set upon the earth. I'm going into prophet Isaiah chapter 8, and I'm going to start this at verse 9. it says, associate yourselves, O you people, and you shall be broken in pieces. Give ear, all you far countries. Gird yourself, and you shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourself, and you shall be broken in pieces. Now he's talking mainly to this last empire that's coming up on the earth that these good Christian folks is putting together right now, that the Bible say is going to fight the Messiah when he returns. Verse 10. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for Elohim is with us. For Yahweh spoke thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, say you not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say a confederacy. Neither fear ye their fears, nor be afraid. Sanctify Yahweh of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And many among them shall stumble and fall, and be broken, and be snared, and be taken. And we can see that today. We can see that today. Anything these Euro-Gentiles come up with, our people, especially with religion, our people are quick to join it and go to West Germany with it. Verse 14. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And many among them shall stumble and fall, and be broken, and be taken, and be snared. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. And I will wait upon Yahweh that hides his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Behold, I and the children whom Yahweh have given me are for signs and wonders in Israel, from Yahweh of hosts that dwells in Mount Zion. And when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have a familiar spirit, and to wizards that peep and that mutter, should not a people seek unto their God, for the living to the dead, to the law and to the testimony? If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. And they shall pass through it, hardly be stead and hungry. And it shall come to pass that when they shall be hungry, they shall fret themselves, and curse their king and their God, and look upward. And they shall look upon the earth, and behold trouble and darkness, dimness of anguish, and they shall be driven into darkness. Nevertheless, the dimness should not be as it was in her vexation, when at first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea beyond Jordan in Galilee of the Gentiles. The people that sat in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them has the light shine. And truly, today we are in the land of the shadow of death. And if you read the King Alpha plan on the internet, it's REX 84. If you read that plan, they tell you systematically how they plan on destroying our people when the economic revolution come down. Verse 3. You have multiplied the nations and not increased the joy. They joy before you according to the joy of harvest, and as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For you have broken the yoke of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of the oppressor, as in the day of Midian. For every battle of the warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuels of fire. And when you read Ezekiel 39th chapter, that is what's going to take place at the war of Armageddon. Ezekiel 39 and Joel 2, and then you can go back and pick it up at Zechariah chapter 12 up through chapter 8 rather, up through chapter 14. Isaiah 9 and verse 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty Elohim, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David, and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forevermore. The zeal of Yahweh of hosts shall perform this. Yahweh has sent a word into Jacob, and it has lighted on Israel. This is the reason why you hear the things that you hear coming from the house of Israel, especially from the cultural center of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel. We are Yahweh's chosen people, and we are set in the earth to bring forth the fruit that will to make them ready for the return of the Messiah. Yahweh told Abraham we'd be here 400 years, and we're right at the end of that 400 years, which is ending at the 2,520 years that the Gentiles was given in Daniel chapter 2 to rule the earth. So be careful. Read your book. And like Christ said, watch. When you begin to see these things come about, look up, because your redemption is near, right at the doors. My name is Yaakov ben Israel, and I'm the elder priest of the Culture Center of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel. We're located at 3901A Covington Highway in Decatur, Georgia. Our website is thencci.com. Check our website and come and see what you can come up with. We try to do a pretty good website for you to give you knowledge and understanding so you can read your scripture and understand that we haven't got long to stay here in this place of our captivity. Our fathers was brought over here slaves, but if you read Isaiah 66, you'll see that Yahweh is going to redeem our people and bring us back to the earth. And you couple Isaiah 66 with Micah chapter 4 and Isaiah chapter 2. Peace. Yahweh be with you all.